requested. So today you'll pardon me. We're just going through the notes. We're just listening to some of the areas. Maybe just to repeat on what I said earlier, because we have so much to cover up. One of the most important things that we need to know, the definition of the term change. That's the first thing that you need to be able to understand, the definition for the term change. The other one is to define the term change management, being able to define the term change management. The other one is being able to identify the internal and external factors that could be influencing change. The other part is being able to know the types of organizational change. The other part is about resistance of change. And on the resistance of change, on the causes for resistance, and maybe ways of managing resistance to change. The other ones is the theories and the models to be used in the change management process. At least three models or the theories which are often used. For example, the first change theories model by Lewin. Then Philip Kotter's model, the Philip Kotter models. Some of the model commonly used during the change management process. So we can now go through these. We first of all begin by meaning of the term change. Change, the way it has been defined. Maybe just in a simple way on how we understand the term change is just the alteration of a way of doing things. Changes can be affected in a number of areas within the organization. There could be reasons why changes are necessary. Maybe a need to make a new product or offer a new service, a need to avail a product in a new market, a need to maybe use a new technology, a need to acquire a new skill, etc. There are so many facets of a change. So you begin by the meaning of a change. So change is basically a variation in the common way of doing things. Whenever people perform a task in a certain way, they get accustomed to them. They develop methods which they can implement routinely to achieve this task. Any variation in this method is nothing but change. So changes may be either natural or reactive. Natural changes generally occur routinely in the ordinary course of business. For example, the effects of the growth of an organization lead to changes in management styles. On the contrary, reactive changes happen as a reaction to the organization policy or its a business. For example, whenever a firm adopts a new technology in production, its workers will have to adapt to them. So from that introduction, you can see that change is just the alteration of way of doing things. So what is change? Change is an alteration or modification of a way of doing things. That's how change is defined. The next we have management of change. So every good manager must be able to anticipate predictable changes. Apart from that, he should also be able to smoothly incorporate these changes into the organization. This is basically the entire aim of a change management. Change is always inevitable. Yeah, change is always inevitable. That implies that change cannot be avoided. You cannot run away from change. Once it has faced you, you have to respond. You have to be able to take certain measures to incorporate the alteration or the modification are needed. So change is always inevitable. More so to the business organization, If you are in competition, there will be a need for you to alter the way you are doing things, or maybe modify your strategies so that you can be competitive in the marketplace. Failure to do so, you may not survive in the marketplace. So one can never completely prevent it. Yes, you can't run away from change. Whenever change comes, you have to embrace it. You have to accept kwamba, yes, there is a need to move and try maybe the new challenges that comes along as a result of the need of change. So managers can either wait for changes to occur, or they can anticipate them and act in advance. So that one is now the approach which can be undertaken by the managers. We're able to pick out the approaches which can be taken by the managers in the process of a change management. One, you can be reactive. A manager can be reactive towards change management, or a manager can be proactive against a change management, being reactive or being proactive. So reactive, you wait for something to happen. You wait for maybe the worst performance to occur, is when you respond to that a bad occurrence. Then proactive, you take measures in advance to mitigate any bad consequences from happening. So good managers are normally proactive. They are anticipatory. They try to look at the future, raising questions about maybe where the performance may not meet the expected expectation, and do the necessary adjustment before the worst take place. Like, for example, in the area of information systems, you must be able to put good systems of controls to mitigate the chance of maybe the system failure, or the system being hacked by malicious computer users. So the managers can either go the proactive way, or they can be reactive way. And the best managerial approach towards managing change is that managers need to be proactive and not be reactive. So proactive managers are known to be optimistic, while reactive managers are always known as to be pessimistic. Okay, this process generally requires a thorough understanding of the factors that affect changes. This is because external and internal factors are solely responsible for effecting changes. So as the managers respond to the changes, they must be able to ask them a question. What are the factors? What are the factors driving the changes to occur or to happen? Are they originating from inside the entity, or are they coming from outside the entity? So you can have the forces coming from external, and you can also have the forces emanating from internal. Okay, next we have a change management. So change management is defined as the methods and manners in which a company describes and implements change within both its internal and external process. So class, what is a change management? Just the methods and the manner in which a company can describe and implement the change within its internal and external process. So this includes preparing and supporting employees, establishing the necessary steps for change, and monitoring pre and post change activities to ensure successful implementation. So that's what's meant by the term change management. Yeah, being able to take care of the change processes by monitoring, by trying to describe the process and come up with a good change implementation strategy. Then you have the causes of change. This is also very important, because this one assists you to understand what are the examples of the internal factors that could be contributing to change, or the external factors that can also be contributing to change. So changes affecting an organization are basically the results of its environment. Both external as well as the internal factors play a huge role here. Hence, managers need to understand all types of changes possible under these two classifications. So we begin with the external factors. These factors always lie outside an organization. So the locus of the external factors, they come from outside the entity, and there are quite a number of them. So neither the organization itself nor its members are responsible for them. So they're normally beyond the management control. If you can recall our topic on environmental analysis, we say that we have the external factors which originate from outside the entity. And for that case, they are outside the domain of the managers are control. Managers can do nothing about them. However, they can take certain measures to manage the situation. So however, they always feel the effect of these factors. Some of these factors include economic factors, access to resources, market demand, competition, inflation, interest rates. Those are something beyond the managers' control. However, they have an impact on the decision-making process. Next is our technology. Though for our technology, it can also be internal. It can also be looked in terms of an internal factor and also external factor. Like, for example, if the entity is a disruptor in the marketplace, they're the people who can come up with a new technology. In that case, the technological aspect will be an internal factor to them. But if it's because of external demands that you have to embrace new methods of doing things, you have to acquire new tools of doing work, in that case, it becomes now external factor. So the growth of a technology always forces an organization to adapt. For example, the discovery of new production methods. Now, class, we also have got different types of technology. The capital-intensive technology, then also the labor-intensive technology. The one with the much influences here in terms of the production methods, it is the capital-intensive technology where machineries and equipments are to be employed in the production process. Then C is politics. Policies of the government change routinely. Even the government itself changes every term. Yeah, these factors play a large role in the external environment. That's very true. So politics is also an external factors, but what counts for the political environment is their policies. Every government in power do come up with a number of policies to support the business environment in the country. So those ones also has got an influence. You must be able to adjust to meet maybe the political demands at that given time. The other ones are other factors like urbanization, education, cultural changes, change in social mindset, etc. also affect every business organization. Then you move on to the internal factors. These are now the factors that operate or emanate from within the organization itself. And they do have got an impact on the business management. For this case, they're normally within the control or the domain of the managers control. The managers can effectively be able to identify them and take control over these particular factors because they just operate within their locus of control. So sometimes changes can also occur internally. An organization and its own members are responsible for these changes. For example, the top management of a company might decide to diversify its business. This decision will lead to several changes in which the companies function. Similarly, other internal factors include, number one, changes in personnel due to hiring, termination of employment, retirement, promotion, etc. Changes of functional policy decisions like holidays, work hours, paid leaves, etc. Changes affecting physical facilities like usage of alternative raw materials or adaptation to new machinery. So class, we have a number of internal factors, reasons that can bring up a change, like one, organization culture, or the corporate culture. That's an internal factor, organization culture or corporate culture. Another one is organization structure. That's also an internal factor. that can also contribute to introducing changes, organization structure. Another one is personnel factors, e.g. training of the staff or the employees, so that they're able to acquire the required skills to make them to be competitive in the changing job environment. Personnel factors that can, or that's also an internal factor. The other one is things like the organization policies, and procedures. Work procedures, the organization policies and work procedures. Those one can also bring changes in their areas to be effected, to revise maybe an organization policy or the procedures of doing our work. So those are some of the few examples of, okay, you can also look at things like the tools and the equipments of the entity, The other one is maybe the need to acquire additional premises, etc. So let's now move on to theories of change. I hope you have taken note of the internal and external factors, very important, so that in case you meet them in an exam, you can effectively answer that part by being able to identify examples of the internal or external factors. Next, we're now moving on to the theories of a change. We know theory is just a framework, or it can be in the form of a model that explains something in the real life situation. So there are a number of theories in area of change management. We're going to just look at a few of them that we consider to be quite important, and they're widely examined by. So they're widely examined. So theories of a change. So when the need for change becomes obvious, your organization must determine the best steps to take to put that change into effect. If you play it by ear and hope for the best, you are taking a big risk. Many change projects fail, but if you look at an example of successful change management, to base your own strategy on odds of success increase. This is the reason why people also go for the benchmarking, so that they can be able to learn on some process of doing work, on some functional performance, on some strategies that is working well for another entity. So you have to be very open to your business environment. What are your competitors are doing? What part of their strategies have they been able to revise, modify, or alter? And it could be working for them or maybe not working for them. So that's where change management models comes in. Change management models provide specific guidelines to help organizations through the process of planning and implementing change more successfully. So it gives you a guide on a step-by-step basis process on how you can fully implement the change. So change model are just a tool. They are tool used for effective management of a change process. So let's look at a proven change management process that has been developed by experts and tested by other business. Learning the different change management models teaches organizations about best practices to use in a change management. Whether you pick one model or use some combination of a few, they can lead to development of a more effective change management methodology. Change projects are frequently big, complicated, and costly. Okay, Bribach points out that you want to make sure that whatever you are investing in, whatever that change is, that it sticks. Using a trustworthy change management model helps you consider all the factors you need to buy in from employees and stakeholders. And it offers a shortcut for developing a change management workflow you can use for each new change you implement, rather than starting from scratch every time. So we have the types of change management model theories to consider. Again, you need to take note on this model upper. The most important one is the Lewin's change management model. The Lewin's change management model. Then number 2, we have the McKinsey 7S model. The McKinsey 7S model. The number 3, we have Philip Kotter's change management theory, which normally contain the 8 process of change management, the 8 process of change management. So these first 3, these are first 3 that are mentioned there. They have been tested by the examiner, the Lewin's change management model, the McKinsey 7S model, then also the Kotter's change management model. We can also add the ADKA change management model, which is just an abbreviation of certain words, which we shall be looking at later. So let's look at this model, very important, Lewin's change management model. Now, Lewin's change management model, it has got 3 processes of change management. What we call unfreeze, that's normally the first one. Then the second one, change. Then the next one, refreeze. So this model of Lewin's change, it tells the managers, yes, people have attitude, people have a perception. There is that organization culture at the workplace. So if you want to introduce a change, one of the elements that will be affecting effective process of a change management is the organization culture. So we need to look at a way on how we can do away, or we can look look away from such kind of a bad culture or bad perception that has been affecting the company for a longer period of time. Then you will sit down and do what you call now developing the changer strategy. You try to tell the employees to support the new changer process. Once everything has been well communicated and people understand, yes, we have to change, we have to alter our attitude, our perception. You have now to embrace a new organizational culture. And that's now where the refreeze part is now coming in, now making the new changes what? Compulsory. They now becomes what? Operational. And that's what Lewin's model identifies. First of all, we have unfreeze. We have to try to unfreeze that old habits of doing things, that old behavior. You tell people that now, stop. For example, if an employee was coming to work late, you tell them now, you tell the person that from today, henceforth, you are not required to be reporting to work late. You have to be on work on time. Then you come now with the policy. That's now the part of the change. Now come the policy, make it now to be a policy. Then you go to the refreeze, which is now to implement. So Lewin's change management model, Lewin's change management model, Lewin's change management model. Lewin's change management model is named after its originator, Kurt Lewin, who developed it in 1950. It divides the change process into 3 steps. 1, unfreeze. This is the preparation stage. Analyze how things work now, so you accurately understand what needs to change to get the intended results. In this stage, you also make your case to employees and communicate what to expect, so everyone impacted is prepared. So anyone who is affected understand why changes needs to be introduced. As a manager, you've been observing them, for example, they've been coming to work late. So tell them, the guys, yes, you've been coming to work late. So we have to change from this thing. And that's now the first process of unfreezing, being able to learn and prepare the process of implementing a change. Then number 2 is a change. This is the implementation phase, but the change, put the change into practice and keep communicating and providing support for all employees involved. Then number 3, refreeze. To avoid falling back into the old ways of doing things, develop a strategy to check in and make sure the change sticks. review how the new process work, and measure how well you reach your goals. So those are the three steps of Lewin's cut as a process of managing change: and freeze, change, then re-freeze. Next, we have this model by the McKinsey 7S model. Those who, I hope we have interacted with this name, McKinsey. McKinsey is a global reputable consultancy firm of management. They have offered consultancy to major corporations. They are very good in that area of offering some managerial advices. They do charge a very premium fee. They are quite very expensive in terms of their consultant services they do offer. Their employees are always known to be the best consultants. So McKinsey 7S are basically some 7S, and those S can also be used as a way of understanding the process of introducing change. At the heart of the 7S, there is what we call the shared value, which is at the core of everything, the shared value, the core values, the guiding principle, which now connects to other six S. So if you go down to the diagram there, we have that one there. You can see the shared value. The shared value is quite very important because that's now the guiding principles, the core principles of the entity. That's what the people believe on. That's their norms, that's their tradition. Like, for example, if you're to set a strategy, we normally first begin by establishing the vision. We decide our vision. Once we have decided our vision, the next thing is to decide on the mission statement. What's our business, our purpose? Then the third one, we must agree on our shared values, the shared values. So the shared values is very critical. The core principles, which will be guiding employees. What are they going to believe on that particular company? What defines them as the members or the employees of that particular entity? And that's why in that particular diagram, as part of the other 6S, the shared value is at the heart of it. It is interconnecting all the other S. Like there we have the style. The style is now the approach to be taken by the managers in offering leadership to the entity. So which style are they going to use? Are they going maybe to adopt a autocratic leadership style? Are they going to adopt a participatory leadership style, a visionary leadership style, etc.? The next one we have got the skills. Skills are now their ability. We must be able to ask ourselves, yes, we want to make these changes happen. We want to introduce the changes. Do we have the skills? Does these employees have the skills? Like one of the reasons why employees could be resisting changes is that of the inadequate skills. So we must ask ourselves that particular question. If we can be able to train them to acquire the much needed skills to maybe operate the new machinery. Next one is the system. So system, it means that there is some interconnection. There are certain elements of the components which are working together to achieve a certain common objective. So we must be able to do proper analysis and looking at our system. Are they efficient? Are they effective in contributing to the organization objective? Then we have the structure. So the structure is now the framework under which various responsibilities are defined. And for that case, it tells you the position that do exist in the entity and the areas of responsibility and accountability in the entity. So for also change to be effectively implemented, we need to have the right organization structure in a place, the right organization structure in a place. The next we have the staff. The staff is now the people, the employees, who will be implementing much of the recommendations out of the change process. For that case, we need to ask ourselves, do they have maybe the skills required? Are we able to modify their behavior, their perception, and their attitude towards doing the work? And lastly, we have what we call the strategy. So the strategy is now the course of action which you're going to pursue to achieve that identified what? Business objective. So those are the 7 S that can also guide the managers in implementing the change process. Talking about the style, thinking about the skill, the system, the structure, the staff, the strategy, then the last one, the shared values, the shared values. We go to the most important, another most important model by Philip John Cotter model. Philip John Cotter model. Examiner can ask you to explain using an illustration. Explain John Cotter's change process model. And there are 8 of them. They're normally in step. They're progressive. They look like a ladder right from the very beginning, the first one, as we climb up. So you can't jump any step in the change process. You have to be systematic. You start from the lower level, you go to the next one until you get to the bottom, so to the top part of it. So according to Cotter's model, a Harvard professor and change management expert, John Cotter, created a theory called Cotter's change management theory, which focused primarily on the people involved in a change process and their psychology. He divides it into 8 steps. So ya kwanza hapo is a greater sense of urgency to motivate people. He has greater sense of urgency to motivate our people. So what happens there? What happens there is that manager needs to understand. Managers needs to understand the problem which they're trying to solve. The other one, they must also be able to involve the key stakeholders in the process, involve the key stakeholders in that process of introducing change as a matter of creating the urgency to make the change process to be implemented. Then number 2, build your change team, which leaders and change agents of various skills and departments. That's now the second process. Build your change. This process is also sometimes known as a build a change coalition. This number 2, build a change coalition. Build a change alliance coalition. Build a change alliance coalition. Just build a change team. So you have to consider the various stakeholders who will be affected by the change process and have them being brought in board. They have to participate in the process of understanding the change management process. The number 3, define your strategic vision for what you want to accomplish. So you must come up with a vision, then you do proper definition of that vision. The next is communicate with everyone. So what are you communicating with everyone? You are communicating the strategic vision with every concerned party or the person affected by the change process. They must be able to understand the vision for the company. The number 5, identify roadblocks or identify challenges and address anything causing friction. Then 6, create short-term goals to break your change management plan into achievable steps. So short-term goals is very important. We must be able to tell the areas of our success, not only focusing on the long term, but also trying to look at the short term. The short-term success will contribute to the attainment of the long-term success. So in number 6 there, the organization must be able to create a short-term goal wins. A short-term goal wins in the entity. The number 6, keep up the momentum throughout the process of implementation. Then the last one, maintain the changes after the initial project is complete. So those processes can be put like something like a ladder, which goes up and which goes up, sorry, which start from the bottom going up. So we go to the fourth one. So the fourth one is a ADACA change management model. So ADACA model developed by FR Hiat, the founder of Prosky, formulates 5 main goals to base your change management process on A, awareness, ensure everyone in your organization understand the need for change. Then B, desire, make your case so that everyone involved wants the change. Then C, knowledge, provide the information each person needs on how to accomplish their part of the change process. Then D, ability, make sure all employees have the skills and training they need to successfully do their part. Then reinforcement, continue to work with the employees and stakeholders after the change is accomplished to make sure they stay on top, on top of doing things the new way. So that's the 4 important change management model. So the rest we can ignore. The rest we can leave. Those are not quite so much important to us. So we can leave those ones. Okay, so let's move straight to how to select a change management framework. So this will be leading us to the various types of changes within the entity. So this is also a very important part for us. We need to be able to identify the various types of changes in the organization. So how to select a change management framework? Each of these change management framework emphasizes the importance of centering your employees on how to plan and implement the change. Think about their feelings and treat effective communication with them at the top, as the top priority. That's not a one change management methodology that's the best across the board. Instead, by understanding all of them, you can determine which one makes the most sense for your business needs, or take elements from each one that apply to your situation. So on which model to be used, you can be advised by experts. They are management experts who can be brought on board during the process of introducing change, and they can help you to understand which is the right model to use within the context of your organization. So let's go to the types of organization change. So the first we have organization-wide change. Organization-wide change is a large-scale transformation that affects the overall structure of the company. This typically tends to entail resizing of any form, restructuring, or collaboration, basically a step towards a change in the nature of the company. For example, changing from a highly reactive entrepreneurial organization to one that more has a more stable corporate development. It should be noted that irrespective of the type of a change undertaken, these changes do affect the organizational culture, and as an end result affects the behavior patterns of employees and individuals. Changes in this category are long-term, and if not planned well, can be highly disruptive. So organizational changes are basically those that entails those measures taken to bring some newness in the entire organization. They affect the entire organization, not only just a department, but the entire organization. You can recall on our introduction when we are looking at some of the causes or the circumstances for the change. There is a matrix that we used. In that matrix, it identifies some 4 causes of a change or some categorization of a change. based on the two variables. One was the scope of change, then the other one was the nature of the change. There are four of them: adaptation, evolution, reconstruction, then revolution. And we see that transformation, that's now the evolution, and revolution is now the changes in the entire organization. It can be either incremental or it can be radical. Then adaptation and reconstruction, those are on just a department or a section of introducing what? Change. Number two, we have a transformational change. So it is important for company to constantly examine the organization underlying strategies. A company must be in touch with the environment around them. This includes knowing cultural trends, understanding the social climate, and generally be glued up on technological advances. According to recent MIT study, maturing digital businesses are focused on integrating digital technologies such as social, mobile, analytics, and cloud in the service of transforming how their business work. Less mature digital businesses are focused on solving discrete business problems with individual digital technologies. In an increasingly digitally motivated world, more tech-based companies are taking risk to the point where it has become a cultural norm. So transformational change, it affects just a certain individual area of an entity where changes can be affected. It can maybe in the area of a product making, service offering, etc. Then you have the personnel change. So personnel change is when a company undergoes mass hiring or layoff. This necessitates a shift in the company culture and a process. Like for example, the Twitter has undergone a personnel change. Majority of the staff were laid off. Also other leading, some of the leading multinational companies, they are also laying off their staff as part of the personnel change measures. There is no need for us to read so much a story there. We just need to understand what's a personnel change and where it is applied. It affects who? The workers, for example, through the mass hiring or layoff. Then we have unplanned changes, just from the word unplanned, meaning that we didn't have even a plan, we didn't have a strategy, but we end up introducing changes. So unplanned changes are basically those plans which are undertaken without any measures which have been, without any advanced measures are put in place. So when it comes to the disasters which were not planned for, or there were no any mitigation measures are put in place. Remedial change, by its nature, is just meant to correct a situation. They are taken maybe to respond to a certain situation. Like in this case, remedial changes are brought about when responding to a general sense of deficiency or poor company performance. So they are just taken as a measure, as a corrective measure or remedial measures. So those are some of the types of changes that we have: organizational change, transformational change, personnel change, unplanned change, remedial change. We can also have the proactive change and reactive change. Proactive change and reactive change. So we have this part up, very important, managing resistance to change. Managing resistance to change. So this area up, we need to ask ourselves the reasons for resistance. Then ways of managing resistance, Then maybe the strategies that managers can employ to manage resistance to change. So we shall go through this one because this is very important for us. So resistance to change can be either individual or organizational. Individual resistance comes from the people who are affected by the change and often arises from fear of the unknown or concern about loss of our status or perceived lack of our skills to manage in the change situation. Based on whether or not people are aware of their action, consciousness or unconsciousness, and whether they are acting openly or not, covert and overt, we can define 4 types of resistance to change. So one, the survivor is intent on ignoring the process of change and may even be hurt at the suggestion of non-cooperation. So the somebody just wants to survive by maintaining the status quo. 2, the saboteur knows what they are doing, but doesn't want others to know. They may be motivated by the need to minimize their own losses. They are likely to infect others directly because they're not being open about what they are doing, but their behavior may influence others. 3, we have the zombie. The zombie lacks the will to carry out change and is always likely to revert to their original behavior. The protester, like the saboteur, knows exactly what they're doing, but is much louder about it, making this the easiest type of resistance to spot. This is also the resistance most likely to spread to others. So those are the 4: the survivor, the saboteur, the zombie, then the protester. Then we have organizational resistance can rise from a mismatch between organizational mission, objectives or culture, and the change plan, or from lack of resources to implement change, or even from nostalgia for the way things were. So you can see some of the reasons why there could be resistance. People don't understand maybe the vision, the mission of the company, the objectives, or there's a different organization culture that doesn't welcome the change, or there's a lack of resources to implement a change. So it can also result from individual resistance among senior employees within the organization who use their organizational power to block a change. So barriers to problem solving and change. Problem solving is an essential part of making change happen, but there are various possible blocks or barriers which may hinder it and therefore the change process. These blocks may include perceptual blocks. Yes, when we began our class on this part of a change, we say that changes are normally influenced by the people's perception, which is determined by maybe the situational factors or the environment where they do operate. So perceptual block is on the perception, having some maybe preoccupied mind of something, and that one can also affect any change. There are people who are very who take a very firm position because of maybe lack of information or understanding, and they may think kwamba that's the right way of doing things. You tell them kwamba we need to change our strategies, we need to change our approach, we need to change our ways on how we handle our customers, but they say kwamba that's not the way to go. We should just still continue doing the things the same way. And one of the reasons is maybe out of their perception, how they're able to see things, how they're able to relate relate some of the situational factors affecting the change process. Like there are 3 factors that normally influence our perception. One is the situation, one is normally the target, and the third one is the perceiver. So our factors of the situation, it could be time, we are time bound. Another one, it could be the working setting. Another one, it could be social setting. Like the working setting, somebody could be very comfortable with the current status of doing things. Then the factors are in the passiva, it could be attitude, it can be a motive, it can be interest, it can be expectation, it can also be experience. We'll also determine how that person will be effective in a change process. Then the factors in the target, it can be the size, it can be the sound, it can be the similarity, etc. So perceptual blocks are associated with the inability to identify problems, such as stereotyping. We know stereotyping is just to have a fixed mind over something without a proper justification. Then failing to see the situation from other perspectives, information overload, or looking at the problem from a too narrow viewpoint. Then emotional blocks. This include fear of taking risk, intolerance of ambiguity. Intolerance of ambiguity, in that our previous model, we saw it. It's either you become a risk taker, a high risk taker, or a low risk taker. You become a high risk taker or a low risk taker. That will also determine which kind of a change measure can be taken based on the personality and the behavior of the individual. So this includes fear of taking risk, intolerance of ambiguity, saying no too soon, and not giving ideas to mature. The number 3, we have cultural blocks. Such blocks include taboo subjects, taking things too seriously, failing to harness creative energy, and over-focusing on logic or relying too heavily on tradition. The next, we have environmental blocks, including lack of support, rejection of criticism, or inability to listen to others. Then the last one, you have the mental blocks. These blocks refers to individual thoughts, process, and inappropriate use of concepts or analysis, which can include using incorrect language, inflexibility, and lack of correct information. So those are some of the barriers to problem solving and the change: the perception, people's emotion, the cultural factors, environmental or situational factors. Then the last one, the mental, like lack of information. Then what can you do to overcome resistance to change? So one of the very useful tools for identifying how to overcome resistance to change is the force field analysis. Again, this is a tool by Lewin's Lewin's analysis. So this tool both analyze the situation and give a structured way of looking at how to overcome the most important resistors. So this will normally separate what we call the supporting forces, and left the other side opposing forces. The driving forces, one side on the driving forces. Those are the forces for what supporting changes to be introduced. And left the other side, we have what we call the restraining forces, what are opposing the changes to happen. Through that better analysis, the managers will be able to understand how to overcome any possible resistance of a change. So the steps to success under force field analysis: 1, define the current change problem as accurately as possible, including strengths and weaknesses and the ideal situation. So first of all, you have to identify your current problem. The number 2, list all the helping and resisting forces. This may be related to people, the economic situation, time, resources, the external environment, or the organization culture, or indeed other issue. Then 3, rank in order of the strength of influence. You could either use a scale from 1 to 10, for example, or opt for a simpler classification of a strong, medium, or weak, but not make sure that you think about them in relative terms. Then draw a force field diagram with helping forces on one side and resisting ones on the other side. For each force, draw an arrow whose length or thicknesses indicate its strength. Then decide whether each one is important, very important, or not important. Then 5, analyze each force for each one labeled as either important or very important. See how it will be either strengthened for helping force or weakened for resisting one. Then 6, discuss your findings with others and agree a course of action that seem most likely to result in the desired change, including identifying resources. Then finally, draw up an action plan for more information. So there is a page there. So that's not very necessary for us. So no exam will ask you to give these steps up of the forced field analysis. The most important, you should just understand to explain the forced field analysis, whereby we have what you call the driving forces, the forces for on one side, and off the other side, we have restraining forces, the restraining forces. Then in between, you separate the two forces, the driving forces, the forces for, alafu na the restraining forces, the forces are against. And all of them are driving towards what? Implementing a change. Like when you want to introduce a new information system, we have the drivers for. We have the drivers for the change. What is supporting the changes to be introduced? For example, quality, speed, productivity, access of data, security, etc. Could be reasons why we need to implement a new information system. Then we have the restraining, which are now opposing, like one, lack of skills, loss of jobs, cost, etc. can be some of the restraining for our forces. So that's how the force field analysis is used. Just identify the driving forces, then the restraining forces. That's important for us. That's what's important for us to know on using the force field analysis. Then we have what you call the strategies for overcoming resistance to change. So these are quite obvious. We're not going to read everything, just mention them. One is education and communication. Yes, educate people so that you raise awareness on why you are introducing changes. Then also communicate that change process effectively. Invest on the infrastructure that can facilitate a good communication to take place. Number 2, participation and involvement. Yes, involve all the key stakeholders into the change management process. When people are involved, they're likely to resist the changes being introduced because they become part and parcel of the change management process. So ensure kwamba all the affected parties are involved in the process and they participate in the discussion pertaining what? Understanding why the company is to put the change in place. The next is the facilitation and support. So upper is that one of the factors that could be affecting the changes implementation is lack of adequate what? Resources. So can we be able to provide those resources to where it is needed? Proper training can also be done for the employees, and the much needed counseling can also be offered to the employees. The next, we have a negotiation and agreement. Yes, when there is a bottleneck in terms of agreeing on the best way forward in implementing changes, you can engage in negotiation and agreement processes so that you see what can you agree on in terms of the way forward. So you can go for a win-win kind of a situation, or a compromising kind of a situation in introducing the change. Then you have a manipulation and invitation, or co-opting. In manipulation and invitation. So here, when it comes to manipulation, is just try to play with the people's psychology. You try to maybe boost the morale, like you can give some false promises. You can tell them that if these things happens to be successful, we are going to have a salary increment. We're going to have an increment. Maybe when that time comes, that increment is not there. But why are you doing so? You just want to manipulate them so that you achieve your intended objective. The other one is explicit or implicit, or coercion. Coercion is the use of force. Sometimes you have to use a force, you have to use a threat to introduce a change. You say, kwamba, if you don't want to accept the new way of doing things, then you're going to lose your job. You're going to be fired. So also coercion can also be a strategy used to introduce changes, to make changes happen. So class, those are some of the 6 strategies that you can use to overcome any possible resistance of change: education and communication, participation and involvement, facilitation and support, negotiation and agreement, manipulation and invitation or co-opting. Then the last one, use of what? Coercion. Next, we have diagnosing the need for change. Diagnosing the need for change. So diagnosing change implies careful evaluation of the current situation about the changes are needed. The process also presupposes the overview and assessment of the previous activities for managers to understand the context, causes, and underpinnings for coping with the problems and improving the present situation. So in short, just to cut the story short, diagnosing the need for change is basically doing an evaluation to understand the current situation, whether the changes are needed. Just doing a current inventory, or a current inventory audit to see whether the changes needed to be introduced. And that's what's meant by the term diagnosing the need for change. Evaluating is changes are necessary. So let's leave a lot of the stories there. Then we have the 5 stages of a growth. 5 stages of growth. Okay, that one we can also leave. It's not very important for us in this class. Those are not also very important for us in this class. So even up to here, this part of the levers, your part is not very important for us. We can leave that one. We go to what we call the levers for strategic change. The levers for strategic change. Let's take some few minutes break. Then we continue this part of our levers of a strategic change. So let's continue. Our next part, the levers for change. The levers for change. So levers for change are basically just action taken by the managers. Action taken by the managers to introduce a change. That's what's meant by the term levers for change. Action taken by the managers to implement a change. So let's continue and finish this on the levers of strategic change. So from this part here, strategic change is the implementation of a new strategies that involve substantive changes beyond the normal routines of the organization. There may be slow change where changes are introduced gradually in small incremental steps so that the roles of managers and slight change in tasks for other employees. Sudden organizational change will encounter more resistance. However, carefully it is handled so that, for example, closing out without some resistance as people lose their jobs or the circumstances in which they work alter. So levers of change are action that leaders can take to engage employees in a change. So levers of change are action that leaders can take to engage employees in change. So in addition, they are action to harness the knowledge and enthusiasm of those already engaged. The levers are the backbone of the tipping point computer simulation. Organization can only change when people in them change. They change when engaged. Employees are recognized both why the change is needed and its potential value. The change levers set employees' engagement in motion and give it a momentum. So we have 7 levers of change. So the 7 levers of change, the action which can be taken by managers to introduce change. 1, fostering personal contacts between advocates of change and others. Then 2, prudently using mass exposure. 3, hiring expertise only when required. 4, listening to resistors and shifting resistance if necessary. Then 5, providing the requisite tools and infrastructure. 6, leading by example or walk the talk. And 7, rewarding success in implementing the change. So another thing that you need to know is the 5 major levers of a change, which are not different with the strategies for strategies for overcoming resistance. Like 1, you need to have a communication plan. So how are you going to, or which strategy are you going to use to communicate? Which are the techniques are you going to use to communicate? Which media are you going to use to communicate, to make that communication to be effective? The number 2 is a sponsorship roadmap. There must be a clear guide on how the change process is going to be supported by the various key stakeholders. The number 3 is the coaching plan. The coaching plan is a way of just giving some guidelines, giving some instructions to the stakeholders who are going to be involved in the change process. The next, we can also do the training. We can have a training program as a way to ensure that changes are effectively adopted. Then the last one, resistance management plan. So we must come up with a plan on which we are going to use to overcome some possible resistance during the change. Those are the 5 major levers of a change management. So maybe on the detailed information, you can read later on that part of levers for change management. So much of this one just bulky work, which is not very essential as such. So I want to finish up this part. So maybe you can just look at what we consider to be important, the lesser important. Much of them is just like they've been repeated in this process of change management. So maybe you can look at this method of introducing strategic change. So there are several methods of implementing change in organization, as discussed below. So the first one is transformational leadership. As we discussed, various types of leadership. Whenever there's a change which needs to be implemented, the leadership style that's designed is a transformational leadership style. So that's one of the strategies of introducing strategic change, by going for transformational leadership. Transformational leaders they normally inspire. They also motivate for a certain action to be undertaken. They're also known to be visionary. They're known to be visionary. They are also very charismatic. They're also very charismatic in the process of motivating individuals towards the performance. The number 2 method, is communicating. No, I'm getting mixed up. Number 2 is by use of group forces. So by use of group forces, so group also have a stronger influence and power in the process of introducing strategic change. Then the third one is by providing a rationale for change, is trying to tell people why are you introducing a change, so that they see the sense why the changes are being effected. Then by participation, again, it's just involving people in the change management process, where they participate, they give their views, their opinions for effective change implementation. Another one by using, also by sharing rewards. Yes, people can be rewarded for maybe a certain achievement they make or realize. Then next, by ensuring employee security. So people must be told that the change is not going to affect them. Their jobs is still safe. The jobs are secured. In that case, they can be committed to embrace the new changes. The other one is by communication and education. I think that when we discussed it earlier. Another one is by stimulating employee readiness for change, just preparing them to be ready to meet the obstacles and support the change process. So class, I don't think if the rest are quite very important for us to go through them. That will now bring us to the end of that topic of strategic change management. So as we think about change management, we should know that the reasons why changes are being done is to improve on the performance of the entity. So it's a part of a continuous improvement of the entity so that the quality can be attained. Excellent business performance can also be attained. Customers can be satisfied. The various stakeholders can also be able to get value for their money. So that now can bring us to the end of the most important part of that chapter on what we need to know with regard to the changes management. So you can check on this question. You can take note of these questions. You can take note of this question. August 2022. August 2022 question. August 2022 question. Question 4B. August 2022 question 4B. August 2022 question 4B. April 2022. April 2022. Question number 2. Question number 2. Question number 2. Question number 2. Next question is December 2021 pilot paper. December 2021 pilot paper. December 2021 pilot paper. Question number 6A. Sorry, just question number 6. The whole of question number 6. question number 6, the whole of it. Question number 6. So we only have those questions, so you can check at them, and we can end our class there today. So tomorrow when we meet, to look at a different topic, which is project management, our last topic. So thank you. Have a good night. Let's meet tomorrow.